Hello, adventurers. My name's Tyler.
And I'm Richard.
On today's episode, we're talking about our experiences from GenCon 2023. Welcome to True Strike.
Howdy, folks, and welcome back to the show. Tyler is COVID-free and feeling fancy, and we're back in the studio to talk about our trip to GenCon 2023.
So where do we start?
It was a long drive for you.
You were there too.
I was there, but I was a passenger princess.
Yeah, so yes, from Florida to Indiana, our trip did involve renting a car and driving, I don't know, like 14, 15 hours straight through from one area to another. But it was worth it.
Yeah, no, it was worth it. It actually wasn't the original plan. The original plan was that Tyler was going to drive and I was going to fly and spend 2 hours in the air rather than 14 hours on the ground, just because of the time off, because I didn't have the same amount of time off that Tyler had. But it didn't approve in the manner and speed in which we anticipated, which meant the flights went from being affordable to completely unaffordable.
Strange how that happens.
Pretty much over the course of a couple of days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but it worked out. We got to go to some cool rest stops. We went to Buc-ee's.
Yeah, we got to go to Buc-ee's for the first time. That was an experience of its own. I am now a convert to the House of Buck. If you will.
You got a beaver hat on right now. You guys just have to imagine it.
So it would be a lie if I said I didn't buy a Buc-ee's hat and I didn't just buy like a Buc-ee's snapback or something like that. I went full on crazy and bought like the giant Buc-ee like Fisher hat, the wide brim straw hat. Yeah.
Yeah, but that really, of course, which hat were you going to get? The utility hat or the style hat? You got both.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, that was just one of our little pit stops on the way to Indy.
Oh yeah, this isn't the Buc-ee's podcast.
Yeah, it's not the Buc-ee's podcast. This is the D&D podcast and the specifically GenCon episode podcast.
Yes, we've already done our GenCon pre-con. This is our GenCon post-con.
Yeah.
This was our very first trip to GenCon, and we're just going to give our thoughts and opinions on the con itself. In this episode, we're going to dive into like more specifics of different games and things we did while we were there over the course of the next few episodes, actually. But this one, we just wanted to jump into our thoughts of GenCon.
Yeah, GenCon in general. So what we thought of it, what we did, what we would do differently. Are we going back? Is that a question? All that fun stuff. The main takeaway that I have from this trip was I cannot believe I never went before. And I'm incredibly sad that this is the first time that I've ever been to this convention.
All the years lost that you could have been attending this entire time.
The potential. Yeah, the wasted potential of so many years of Gen Con that I have missed makes me sad.
Just all the people that we spoke with that are all like, yeah, this is my 4th year attending or my 10th year attending, or even all over Reddit. Just all the people have been going forever. And it's like, that could have been us, but instead we were fools.
Yeah. And I never even considered it being a thing, like making the effort to go to it until, I felt like I had a reason to, which was a horrible decision. If you've never been to Gen Con, please just do it. Figure out a way.
To bring PAX into it, because that is a convention that we have both attended, where you would go, and there's lots of board games. It's very fun. There are panels to attend to. In fact, I think PAX is probably a very good, like, baby's first convention, because you buy a ticket and you go in, and if there's a panel you want to go see, you just get in line and you go to the panel. It's not like that for Gen Con.
Yeah.
It is a learning curve, but, it's easily attainable. But that, where it's split across video games and YouTube and anime and all the things, this is definitely more focused on your tabletops, your board games, your card games. And that's not to a detriment, because, ooh, man, there are so many things there. Like, tabletop is alive and kicking, and Gen Con does nothing but put it out in the spotlight and say, hey, world, there's so many games you can line your shelves with.
Yeah, and I've been to other conventions that are in other industries, so not specifically board games, not specifically video games and stuff like that, and it really is not even close. Like even the largest conventions that I've been to in other industries, which we won't get into what those industries are,
Ooh, scandalous.
but yeah, they don't even come close to the level of engagement and even just participation that I saw at this convention. Like it blew my mind, like how big this convention was, how much it just seeped into all the areas around the
Oh, yeah.
convention center. Not just the convention center. I mean, like we're talking, it was creeping into 3 hotels, the Lucas Oil Stadium across the street, and even the tunnels that connected underground the stadium to the convention center.
Street closed off just to fit all the food trucks.
Yeah,
Like,
it's amazing. And like I said, I was not prepared for it. I, kind of had an idea that it was going to be a larger convention. And then having gone to something like PAX, I was like, yeah, that's a big convention. And then you walk onto the main show floor, not even just the only show floor, because there's so many show floors. You walk onto the main show floor, the exhibit hall, and it is staggering.
oh yeah,
Staggering in size.
you could not see from one side to the other, to the point where on day 4 we were like, are we near that one booth? Gosh, I think so. Like look up to try to find like markers. There has to be some sort of sign, like a North Star.
Yeah.
I think it's halfway. We're halfway there. Just keep going. Push through the crowd.
Yeah, it's a lot. And which kind of leads into, I think, one of the first things that we did wrong when coming to this convention, which was at least me, I was thinking, like you kind of hinted at when you were talking about PAX before, which was, you're at PAX and you're all like looking through all the schedule and everything that's going on, and you're like, oh, there's a cool panel that's coming up, I want to go to it. And then you go and you get there in time, you get in line, and as long as you're there at a decent time before the doors open, you're getting into that panel and you're going to it. So while we were at PAX, there was stuff that I didn't plan on attending panel wise that I thought was interesting, and I had the free time and I went and attended that panel and thought it was really, really cool. I thought we could maybe do that for some of these things here, and it's just not the same kind of environment. GenCon is too big for that, for you to just be able to waltz up to a panel that you don't have scheduled and just expect to get into it and expect to be able to go with zero planning at all. So that would be the number one thing that I would change, is planning.
Yeah, we definitely decided, I mean, really at the last minute, that we were going to be attending for sure. Like our plans, I believe our rental car and some of our like request offs and all these things really culminated and timed up at the last like week and a half where we were like, okay, we are going.
Yeah.
Like let's do it. What's still available?
Yeah, it was kind of up in the air, is playing by ear for that last week and a half or so of planning for this, which, was to our detriment. So there was a lot of things that would have been really fun to do and things that we would have loved to get in on that we were unfortunately not able to do because of our poor planning. So this isn't a knock on Gen Con.
No, not at all.
Yeah, no, this isn't a knock on the convention at all. This is just something that going in would benefit a lot of pre-planning. So
Yes.
knowing what you want to do and what you want to get out of it and being able to make the most out of your days there.
Right. I believe now, so anyone listening, if you plan on attending Gen Con in the future, heed our warning. I believe, earlier in the year, they'll start selling passes. Get your pass. Make sure you have that all in order. Then at some point in the year, they'll put up the events and you can add them to your wish list. And then everything will go live. And then at that point, you start booking everything you want, lock it in. And then when you go and pick up your badge, or if you mail it to you, have it mailed, they'll either mail your ticket with your badge or you pick it up at will call. Advice for that: if you're going to go pick up your badge at will call, try to get there early, maybe Wednesday if you can. And you'll just kind of walk up and get your stuff. And if you don't do that, you decide to pick up all your stuff the day of the con, actually, started full force, you be prepared to wait a little while because that line gets crazy real quick.
Yeah, I was shocked at how fast the will call line expanded.
Yes.
Yeah, because when we got there, like you said, we got there early. So on Wednesday, it was, to call it a line is a bit of an exaggeration. Technically, there was a line of people, but it was not a true queue. It was literally, we walked up and it was maybe 4 minutes of walking through turnstiles just to get up to the person at the desk, and then long enough for them to get your last name and go through the alphabet and find your tickets and bring them over to you and have them check it.
Yep.
It was so quick. There was not a lot of people there. And then Thursday morning, however, when we got there, really quickly, that line started to escalate and started to go down the hall and then across the hall and then down that hall and eventually outside.
Ooh, what panel are they waiting for?
Yeah.
They're just trying to get in.
They're just trying to get in. And you'd think that it would be better on Friday, but it still is quite a long line.
If anything, it's just worse. And
Yeah.
then worse again on Saturday. It was insane. Even Sunday. It's the last day. A lot of people are just heading home.
I was shocked at the lines on Sunday.
Yeah, and I think that has to do with the fact that the tickets are so much cheaper on Sunday that maybe you're getting some locals or people that aren't committing for the whole weekend that are like, hey, I'm going to bring my family. Or just, we're a couple of friends wanting to just go to GenCon for on the cheap.
Yeah.
And we're not going to stay overnight and stuff like that. Those are the people that I think are slamming, the will call Sunday morning.
Yeah, but definitely if you can get your tickets earlier, the better. That way you're not wasting a lot of time in those lines when you could be on the actual exhibition floor. You could be in events and everything like that.
Yeah. Now, if you are, following these steps, you're getting your, your badge register and you're getting all your events queued up and everything ahead of time, and you think, okay, I need to have this mailed to me, but I don't want to spend the extra money. If you don't want to spend the extra money, and if you're going to show up Wednesday, you can just get it Wednesday. You don't need to have it mailed to you. Now, if you're going to be showing up Thursday morning, yeah, I would probably spend the extra $12 or whatever it's going to be to have them mail it to you at that point.
I would definitely have that.
But if you're going to get there a little early, you can save some money, spend that on a board game.
Yeah. And once you have your ticketing sorted out, so you know what day you're getting your tickets, you're doing your will call on Wednesday or you're having them mailed to you, I would try and get that hotel room as soon as you can.
Oh my goodness. Now something crazy. We were 15-20 minutes away from the convention, and people at the hotel, when I was checking in, were just like, hey, are you here for GenCon? And I was like, yeah, in fact we are. How'd you know? And they're like, well, everyone's here for GenCon.
Yeah.
We are booked out. All the hotels in town are booked out. Everyone around us booked out. Like, everyone is here for GenCon. And I was like, oh wow, that's pretty cool and crazy. And just walking into our room after checking in, multiple groups of people were like, GenCon? We're like, it.
Like, nerds recognize nerds, right? So everybody just automatically looks at it. They give you that knowing look, and they're all like, GenCon?
Yep.
Like, yeah, you? Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool.
And when you think about it, I mean, like, if you've looked at the numbers, we're talking 70,000 plus people for the weekend. Indy's not a gigantic city. It's also not a small city, but 70,000 people attending this event. How many of those are local? How many people are from out of town? It's easy math to realize that Airbnbs and hotels are going to book out. And the further you are away, the harder it's going to be for you to get there. I mean, we were 15 minutes out, right? Mm-hmm. We had organized for parking, which was a nice, I don't know, maybe 10-minute walk.
10-minute leisurely walk
to the actual
had our
convention
guaranteed
center.
Parking every single day.
Parking.
Could come and go as we pleased.
Yeah.
Lovely gentleman and his son ran this lot. It was great.
Yeah. Now, while we were making that walk, I heard groups around us talking about how they had walked for 45 minutes to an hour from wherever they were to get to the convention center. And that was probably people that were even more last minute planning than us. So we, were last minute, but we still kind of got lucky and we got exactly kind of what we wanted. But there are people that didn't. So, you're talking about making a 45-minute to an hour long hike just to get to the convention center in the heat now of the summer. I can't imagine that. So, yeah, definitely planning ahead on where you're going to stay would be a real big thing.
Now, speaking of that specifically, and I don't know if you were about to go into this or not.
I was about to go into this. I could see you're about to say
I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it's different. Like I said, we were about 15-20 minutes away. All the places around us were great. There was lots of places to eat. None of them were busy. None of them were super expensive. We had a good time. We stayed at a Red Roof Inn, and it wasn't the fanciest hotel in the world, but it was very, very affordable. It was a good price.
It had a coffee maker.
It had a coffee maker and a mini
And
fridge.
a fridge, yeah.
So it did everything we needed it to. And if this was any other convention, I think we would have had great. I would stay there again. I mean, in fact, I would stay there again anyway and be totally fine.
Sure.
It was a good experience overall. And at the end of the day, you're able to just like hit the car, head back, traffic was fine, and just chill out. And it wasn't long to get back in the morning. But the Gen Con itch doesn't actually leave you when you go back to the hotel.
I have regrets.
And seeing that the people staying at the connected hotels literally never had to stop Gen Conning.
Yeah.
24 hours a day, could just wake up at 3 a.m. and walk down the hall and sit down with a group of strangers and jump into a game of Lorcana or something.
I was so jealous. We went to some shows in some of the connecting hotels, and I walked through there. I felt like the lowest peasant in the city as I'm walking through these hotel lobbies, watching people playing, all these board games and card games at just like the casual tables, in the hotel lobbies, or the little, convention rooms and meeting rooms that are just full of people doing things. And then knowing that these people are doing these things all night long.
Yep. It never stops.
Yeah. We leave the convention center. We go grab a bite to eat. We get back to the hotel room and it's like, 9 o'clock. And we're like, okay, well, we can play a board game together, right? Or we can go to bed and, get up early. Yeah. Knowing that if I was in a connected hotel room, I would be like, I would just be like set up in the hotel lobby like one of those weird bazaar merchants with just board games spread out in front of me, just waiting for somebody to walk by. So I can be like, hello, stranger. Fancy a game of dice thrown?
I knew it was going to be dice thrown.
Betrayal at the house on Haunted Hill. Oh yeah, I'd be setting up with dice thrown.
Such an easy one because I could picture you with the chest open up with all the
chest.
characters. Please select your fighter.
Yeah, you can choose any character you want, and then like you're just challenging people to dice thrown until 2 o'clock in the morning, which I would totally do that. Yeah, I was so jealous of everybody in the connecting hotel. Now it should go with saying that being in the connected hotel room does have its negatives, and that negative is the $$.
I was gonna say it seems like one negative
when you look it up.
Negative.
Yeah, it's a big negative. It is quite expensive. Could we have even swung it this time if there were rooms available? Probably not.
Oh, if we were to if the room was available, and no, not at all.
I would have had to apply for a new credit card just to cover this trip.
When I was booking the hotel, because I had a little bit more commitment myself to going before Richard had jumped in, so I was already kind of messing around with like, okay, I'll go ahead and line up a hotel just in case, and I'll start looking around for like a rental car. Like as Richard said, he was gonna fly and meet me, and I was driving anyway, so I was getting the car, and I was like, okay, and the hotel I had was, I think it was like 500 total, something like that for like the whole weekend.
Yeah,
and since we had badges, I was able to look at the block rates for some of the hotels. And I mean, for real, like some of these hotels were like 500 a night.
Yes.
And granted, last minute. So maybe there were some more affordable options early on. But as far as I know, they were all 500 a night. Maybe even more. Who knows?
Yeah.
But that's what was available when I was looking. And at that point, especially not knowing Gen Con at the time, it's just the two of us. Maybe if we get a couple more roommates, it'll be a little easier on the wallet. But I was like, ooh, that's an easy choice right now.
Yeah,
500 for the whole weekend?
Definitely
sounds good.
A big difference, the 500 for a whole weekend versus the possible 500 for a night. But knowing what I know now, I want to make every effort possible to get into one of those connecting rooms.
It would just be a whole different feeling. There's no parking fee because that was its own expense.
Yeah, that's own expense. Yeah, which wasn't huge.
No,
it wasn't
not in the grand
huge
scheme of things.
In the grand scheme of things, but that is definitely something that you lose there, and you don't have to worry about paying for fuel, right? So traveling back and forth to the convention, it's also a little bit more of a time saver because you don't have to worry about padding in the time of when you're going to get up versus when you're going to get to the convention center.
Oh, at all? No, you just wake up and walk down.
Yeah, how late you want to schedule events, how early you want to schedule events.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a lot of benefits to being in the hotel, and the only real negative is that price point.
Oh,
which put out an ad on Craigslist and look for some random people to bunk with us just to cover those expenses.
We don't got to do it on Craigslist. There is, for anyone listening, GenCon has their own forums that people do this on. And you're looking with fellow GenConners. You don't have to look on Craigslist, Indiana.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're not going to get somebody weird.
You're going to get someone weird, probably.
Craigslist versus GenCon Reddit. I mean, who knows? Maybe you will. But yeah, it's definitely high on my priorities list for GenCon 2024 is figuring out how I'm going to make it possible.
What organs do we have to sell to make this happen?
What do I have to do to make it happen to where I'm in one of those connecting rooms? Because I do not want to go again not in one of those connecting rooms, even if it's just one time that I attend Gen Con in a connecting room for the experience.
You just gotta know.
I just got to know. I got to know what it feels like to be playing Dice Throne at 2 a.m. with random people that I don't know.
And I do think if we plan this a little better, maybe if we get 2 others to come with us, we can make this happen.
Yeah, we've already talked about it. There's other things that we've talked about too that makes it happen. So there's different ways that we can go about it, and truly, if it's something that you are interested in doing, you'll find a way to make it happen. But that's just like I said, one of the things that I would like to make happen.
Yes. Now, I guess the biggest takeaway here would be, if you're looking at maybe attending next year for the first time, if you got to stay a little bit of ways, no worries. You're going to have a great time.
Oh, you're still going to
just make sure you lock down your parking ahead of time if you can, or at least go into it with a plan. Outside of that, traffic's fine. Getting there is fine. Getting out of there is fine. You're going to have a good time no matter where you're at. If you're insane and you want to play a Dice Throne at 2 a.m, then yes, get your badge, get your registration, and then get on those block rooms and get something as soon as you can. Because, it's going to be really cool.
Yeah. And then once you're there, enjoy the show. I mean, I do recommend getting there a little bit early, just not because I'm going to say be a rope dropper, right? So, unless that's what you want to do. So like if you want to be there on day 1 and be one of the first ones to the door, get in that crushing crowd and do it. But I suggest going there on that first day and going up to level 2 like we did, so you can watch the spectacle from above. Are there a lot of people up there? Oh yeah, it's still tight up there.
They're all watching the people down below.
But they're all watching everyone down below. And it is just a sight to see, watching the doors to the exhibition hall opening for the first time, being able to watch it from above. And it was just really cool watching all these people there for the same purpose, getting in to see all these great games.
There is one thing that I think we accidentally planned out very well, and that is our first day we had nothing as far as, well, that's not true, we had one event, but basically compared to the rest of the weekend we had nothing planned as far as panels and events and stuff.
Yeah,
so we got to spend the majority of the time actually exploring the exhibit hall, which all I'll say about that is we spent 4 days exploring the exhibit hall and never saw everything.
Yeah. When we were leaving on the last day, we both were seeing booths for the first time.
Yep.
We were like, where did that booth even come from?
I swear they put them overnight.
They put that wasn't here the entire weekend.
Yep.
Yeah.
Someone left, someone new came in. But, so yeah, if you can, unless there's a panel or event you have to go to on Thursday, if you can, and this is my assumption that you're going all 4 days, spend Thursday just checking things out, because that is, no matter how crowded it seems, that crowd is significantly lower than it's going to be Friday and especially Saturday.
Yeah.
Sunday's not too bad either, but by Sunday a lot of the games are sold out. In fact, Thursday games start selling out. I attempted to get my wife Lunar Dial noon on Thursday, and it was already sold out.
Gone. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So make sure you also go into this with the main games you want to try to find, and do try to pick them up day 1 if you can.
Yeah,
because there's no guarantee they're still going to be there.
Which we did that as well for most of our stuff, right? So both of us kind of had something that was high on our list. So if you listened to our previous episodes, you know what those were. So Tyler had Sky Team as one of his number ones,
and was successful at getting it.
Yep. And I had
wait in a rote drop line for that.
Basically. Yeah, exactly. And I had Queen by Midnight as one of my top ones, and Tyler also had that on his list. Both games that we were able to get.
Queen by Midnight was real dicey.
Now that was with planning. So when I said watch from above, right? So do that if you don't have something in specific that you want that you know is going to be in high demand.
Yeah.
Because with both of those games, we had to deal with limited amounts, right? So we knew that they were only going to have limited amounts. We knew that there was going to be queues for these and lines up for these. So we got to those developers as quick as we could so that we could line up to make sure that we were going to get a copy of those respective games.
Asterisk, Thursday, the day I got SkyTeam, we didn't really know it was going to be super limited. That was the first day we stayed up top and watched the crowd. And then we're like, all right, time to mosey on down. And oh, look, SkyTeam's over here because it's the developer. We like just happened. We walk through the right door. We're over there. And then we see a line and we're like, let's get in this line. This is probably for that game. And we're in the line and like, yeah, we have like 100 copies and we're like counting people and we're like number 80 or something. And we're like, oh no, we just got really lucky.
Yeah.
Because we were like 2 minutes from missing it.
Yeah, and the way most of these developers do it is that they actually do limited amounts of copies on a per day basis. So they'll do 100 copies one day, 100 copies the next day, and they'll do that until they run out of games, or they'll try and even it up as best as they can.
Most, but not all.
Most, but not all, yeah. So with our case with SkyTeam, that's what happened. So we were able to get in that first line for SkyTeam. It was great. We went over to Darrington Press to find out that they had already sold out.
Oh, that was gone real quick.
Gone, yeah. So we talked to them and found out that, they were releasing a certain amount per day, essentially, which means that when we got there the following day, that was one of the first booths that we went to. So both me and Tyler actually took different paths on the show floor to get to Darrington Press. I got incredibly lost. I had no idea where I was, and I look up and I see Tyler power walking across like the aisle going 2 different directions, and he looks over and catches my eye and then grins at me as in, why are you over there when you need to be over here?
You walked past the objective.
And then got in line well before me. I actually did. We both ended up getting in line. Tyler beat me, so he was about 15 people ahead of me. We found out that they had actually less than 100 copies that day. They had 80 copies. And I think I was number like 77.
You were in the 80.
Yeah, I was in the 80, so I was going to get a copy. You were about 14 or 15 people ahead of me, so you were definitely getting a copy. We were only getting one copy, so I made everybody behind me incredibly happy when I stepped out and started to walk away, and they were all like, "You're leaving?" And I was all like, "Indeed, one more of you is getting this game," so that I was able to run up and give you, the card to be able to pick it up for me because we only needed the one copy,
right?
But yeah, so if there is a game that you are specifically excited about, I do recommend doing a little bit of due diligence on that so that you know what the developer is bringing and you know if you need to gate crash that developer. Because these are just 2 examples. So these were 2 examples of 2 different games that both me and you were excited about. There are many other games that weren't on our radars that had similar issues.
Oh, yeah, for sure. God, like you said, they're not on our radar side. I can't name one off the top of my head. But there were definitely games all weekend that I would just hear the scuttlebutt through like the crowd of like, oh, you got this? Oh, by the time I got up there, they were already out on Thursday. And I'm like, "Rrr." Or like the game I was getting at my wife. I didn't know about this game until we were at GenCon.
Yeah, we were at GenCon.
And then I was like, oh, cool. It's this game by this podcast. It's not going to completely sell out without additional copies by noon on Thursday. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, no, and that was like, a game that we didn't plan on going to get, and we were casually thinking we were going to walk up and grab it.
Yeah, not an issue.
Just we were like, oh yeah, we're going to go head over there as soon as we leave this booth. So we did that and then got there, and they're all like, yeah, no, sorry.
That's been gone, bro.
It's gone, and we don't have any more copies. Yeah. Like, it's gone for the weekend.
No, thankfully they did. The next day they had an QR code that led to their Amazon page where you could order directly from them through Amazon. Excuse me. And that allowed you to still get like the Gen Con exclusive pin and stuff like that. So that's what we did. And, all was not lost. It was still a successful adventure. But man, there's also some other cool stuff. There was a Dungeons and Dragons board game I got. And the developer or the creator for the game was actually there signing copies of the game if you purchased it at the show. And stuff like that is also so incredibly special. And I don't normally see that at events like this. But here at Gen Con, oh, cool, I'm at the WizKids booth. I'm just checking out this stuff. Oh, this guy's going to tell me about the game. This guy made the game? That's awesome. And I've seen across Reddit, like, other games where people have gotten signed and books signed and all these products they were able to purchase signed by the creators and developers. And I thought that's really cool and unique. no extra fee or anything like that. They're just, you get to talk face to face with these content creators, and I thought it was really neat.
Yeah, it's really cool to be at a convention like this, to be on the ground floor with people that you meet that you don't expect have such a impact or a pivotal role in the development of the game that you're with. You know, you'll go up to a booth, like I went up to the Van Ryder booth to see Final Girl stuff. And I'm talking to the gentleman at the Van Ryder booth, and he's not just some employee that Van Ryder hired to come and run the show. He's the head of their U.S. production facility. So not only am I talking to somebody about the game that just likes the game, I'm talking to somebody who is heading up all the production of their models for the U.S. distribution. And then you're talking to people that are lead designers for games. So, I'm walking by a booth looking at a game, and I stopped and I was like, man, this game has amazing artwork. And like, look at, like, you can buy these posters for it and everything like that. And I looked down at the posters, and there was a young woman there, selling the posters, and she had some Sharpies with her. And I'm like, check this out, Tyler, look at this art on this thing. And she's like, thank you, I'm the one that drew that. I look up and I was like, oh God, you're the artist. And she's like, yeah, I did all the art for this game. And anybody that buys the game or anything like that, I'm signing these posters of the artwork and giving them out. And it's just so cool that you have these people that have all of this stuff, these hands-on stuff with these games, developers, designers, graphic designers, audio, like all that stuff. They're the ones that are there working on it, and you get to talk to them.
Yeah. Now, just to clarify this a little bit, the game I was talking about is Dungeons and Dragons: Trials of Tempest.
Yeah.
I did purchase it, and I'm not sure yet if we're gonna figure out. It seems like it's a pretty hefty, board game. I know we're going to do an episode on it at some point. I don't know if we're going to attempt to do like a gameplay episode, kind of like we did with Till the Last Gasp, or if we're just going to play the game and then maybe post photos and like videos to, our Instagram and our X account and stuff like that, maybe threads. But we're definitely going to talk about it, if nothing else. It seems really neat. To give a very, very short summary, it's basically like the two players, we're there. Like Richard and I would each assemble a team. You choose your species and your class and your subclass, and between all of that, you come up with your characters that you have for your team. And we have like different objectives and stuff, and you're each competing for points based on the objectives. Then there's a boss battle, and it all has miniatures, and you're rolling dice, and it's like PvP D&D, and it sounds really neat and really cool. It's like PvEVP, and I was like, this sounds awesome. Thor, creator of this game, please sell it to me. And we got it, and I can't wait to play it. And like I said, we'll either play it on the show or we'll play it and then talk about it on the show. Either way, look for that eventually. We have a lot of content coming in the next month or so. But yeah, that was my unexpected find of the
being
show.
able to talk to him was really cool. Like, because we walked up and saw this game, and it had a massive table presence, and it just looked amazing. And then somebody starts kind of like, hey, do you want to hear more about the game, and wanted to pitch it to us. And then he starts pitching it to us, and then we find out that who he is. He's not just some guy that's at GenCon. He's somebody who is actually has hands-on with the development of this game, which is mind-blowing that this happens. And it was all over the place. Like, you would go to see one of these little games that you may not have heard of, that may not have been on your radar, and you end up talking to somebody who was very influential in the creation of the game. So it's a really unique experience to see.
Whew. Okay. Now, we've talked about our hotels. We've talked about getting your badges. We've talked about, early or not early, joining hotels. We've talked about all these things. All right. Now we've gotten into the door. We've gotten in line and picked up our must-grab games. I mean, next, I would say, you've got your, like I mentioned earlier with the wish list and the events, make sure you try to figure out what panels and events you want to go to ahead of time and get your tickets for those and go. Definitely time these out well. Give yourself at least an hour, maybe more, to get to your next event. Don't schedule them minute to minute, because some of these events do go over. In fact, me and Richard actually missed out on something cool after one of our panels.
I can't believe we missed out on this.
The Arcane Anthems and Jenny D, and they did a video with the guest who attended the panel afterwards, but we had to dip because it was running late and we had a game to go watch with Brennan Lee Mulligan in it. So
Yeah.
we had to go.
Yeah, we had a game that, was not super close, so it wasn't like very, very far. But obviously, we had a little bit of travel to get there, working through crowds. It was on another level too, so it was, like a floor down, and obviously seating. So the earlier you get to some of these events, the better your seating is.
Oh, and real quick, to interrupt you. For real, when he's talking about like, different floor, these events take place everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking, the one event was in a hotel, like up in a skyway across through another way. You're like, all these different ways. You're in an event up here, but then all the way back at the main building could be one, or your event could be over at the Lucas Oil Stadium in a side room, like on a lower floor, or in some cases, it could be in a movie theater, like downtown, if you attended the Dungeons & Dragons movie screening. Like, the events are everywhere.
Yeah, when you're planning out these events and you're kind of padding in your timing, don't just look at the room number and assume where its location is, because there are room numbers and then there's tags on it. So like you have room number 112, right? But then you have JW 112, which is the JW Marriott, which is an adjacent hotel, room 112. So if you don't know what that means, so you don't know what the JW means, you could just assume that it's in room 112. You show up to room 112 and there's people in there that are, playing Pathfinder when you're supposed to be looking for the hardcore metal RPG show that you're supposed to be attending that's in the hotel adjacent. So not only should you make sure to pad yourself a little bit as far as time in between events, because some of these events will bleed over on time, because you get people that are hyped, they're there, or they're getting a lot of questions from the audience if it's a panel participation, or they're just, running over, because that's what Dungeons and Dragons does. You schedule a 2-hour session, you end up playing for 4 hours. But you also have to pad in the travel time. So make sure you know where your events are, in addition to that padding of their travel time. So that way you make sure that you're going to get to something and still have time to get the seating that you want to get, and make sure you're just there for the entire show that you want to see. Because you will miss out on stuff if that's the case, because we, like he said, they did a video at the end with the people that were still left at the end of the panel. I don't know how long it ran over, but obviously we had to dip pretty much right when that panel was supposed to end.
Yep.
Because we knew timing wise where we had to go, and where we were going to be able to be and how good of a seating we were going to get, which we ended up getting decent seats, and we got there at a decent time. We could have got better seats if we had more time, and we were able to queue up a little bit earlier. We were a little bit under the gun on that one. Now that wasn't that was our fault, because this was an event that we literally scheduled while we were waiting for the event that ran over to start.
Yeah, and it was one that got thrown in
last minute.
Very last minute, yes.
Yeah, the event wasn't live earlier in the day.
It was written on the board in front of the room, and like it was written on a piece of paper that had been laminated and like stuck to the board.
Yeah.
Whereas everything else had been like nightlessly printed on the board and stuff. So it was last minute for everybody.
Yeah, everybody, like even the players, I think. They're probably just sitting around at lunch and they're all like, "Hey, this hall's empty. We should play D&D in here." Yeah, let's do it in 2 hours.
Okay, so that's your panels and your scheduling, and
well, I guess you should kind of go over the ticketing of things, right? Because there are,
this is a good point.
When
this
eventing,
was difficult and unexpected of us.
Yeah, it was difficult because we didn't realize the way the systems work, and knowing the way that systems work and how things are organized will help a lot, because you have events that you can just purchase tickets for, right? So you can just go to the your website, you can search up an event, you can buy those tickets or register for those tickets if they're free. Sometimes they're paper tickets that you have to pick up, right? So you'll get those at will call, so you have to actually get your paper ticket,
or mailed to you if you choose that ahead of time.
Yeah. And then there's also another kiosk where you can pick up tickets, so that we'll be able to take that ticket with you to gain entry into the hall or whatever the room may be. Then there's digital tickets, so those are ones that are not physically something you hold, right? They're just tied to your GenCon badge, so you flash your badge like an FBI agent,
and they boop
it, and then you get into the event. And then you have generic tickets, which was a whole nother ball of wax.
Those are something that just appear in your bag randomly, and you just have to keep an eye out for them.
Oh man, what is that? I don't know this guy's name. Yeah, so generic tickets are something that you get, which are just that. They are generic tickets. So there are events that happen that you can go to, where when you go up, you don't have a ticket for that event specifically. You have generic tickets that are worth a specific dollar amount, right? So
Each one is $2.
yeah, and you just tear them off however many you need. So like, I'm going to attend this Dungeons and Dragons game by this host, and when I get there, he's going to be all like, okay, that'll be 6 generic tickets, right? So I tear off 6 generic tickets. I give it to him. And that's it, right? So that's your generic tickets. When you have generic tickets, if you have them left at the end of the year, you can bank them into your GenCon account. So if you buy over on your generic tickets and you don't end up using them, you can bank them so that you can use them at a later GenCon.
Now, what he means at the end of the year
nice.
is the end of the weekend.
The end of the weekend,
so
yeah.
You haven't left Gen Con yet. You can go to your customer service or wherever and attach the credit to your account to use next year for your ticket or more generics or whatever. Now, a big thing with this is that pretty much don't just plan on like, I'm going to buy 40 generic tickets.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go do tons of events and games with all these generic tickets, because the majority of the time they're using these tickets is because they weren't able to fill a table or someone didn't show up. And then you show up to these games, especially the hall next to the exhibit hall, where there's tons of tables with open games and such. And those are the ones you walk up to that not every single table is fully booked out. And you're like, oh, what are you playing? Oh, you're playing Starfinder. Cool, can I get in? All right, it's 3 tickets? Sweet. And you hand them over and you're good to go. Richard and I did nothing the entire time we were there with generic tickets.
Yeah.
Because 1, we didn't necessarily understand it fully.
Yeah.
And 2, we really did fill up the rest of the time with panels and just walking around the exhibit floor and stuff like that. But maybe we would have if we really, like I said, that hall next to the exhibit hall, that first day there, we left kind of early. Pretty much as soon as the exhibit hall closed for the day, which is 6 p.m., we just went and we tried to find something to do on the app. We couldn't find anything, and we're like, all right, I guess we'll go.
Yeah.
But if we had some, generics, maybe we could have walked over there and just jumped in on a game. I didn't even know.
I think if we had planned a little bit better, or if he'd been in a connecting hotel, generics would have been more used, right? Because
if we're at a hotel,
if I was in the hotel, I definitely would have been using generic tickets to do things. I did end up with some generic tickets before the end of the convention, unbeknownst to me. Some random good Gen Con Samaritan decided that they were going to sneak some generic tickets into my bag, which would have been super cool had I known about them. I did not know about them until we were essentially leaving Gen Con. So I had no clue that I even had generic tickets until it was too late for me to even use
had them the whole
said
time.
generic tickets. So thanks, guy who put the generic tickets in my bag, but I didn't use them, so they were wasted. So generic tickets are something to consider. So, deciding which events you're going to do, and then deciding if you want to pick up generic tickets, and if so, how many that you want to get. It's a good idea to kind of like do a little bit of research and see the kind of events that you're interested in and what the average generic ticket cost might be. So like, is it a game where it's going to cost you a ticket? Is it a game where it's going to cost you 2 or 3 tickets? Maybe even higher than that. I did see generic tickets passing hands in the higher numbers, as in 8 generic tickets for a specific thing, which is, a few. You're looking at $2 a ticket, so that's a $16 game.
Right.
I did see that happen. So there are some games that are very expensive to play in. I don't know what that's set by. Maybe it's set by the GMs themselves.
The game we jumped in on, Dread, I know there was some people that used generics there, and I believe he did mention something where they were charging his game by time. And since it was estimated at a 3-hour time slot, it was actually an extra ticket more than he thought it should have been.
Oh, okay.
Because it was like 30 minutes more than, what it had to be for 2 tickets. And it sounded like it got kind of funky there, and it wasn't necessarily up to who was running the event, that it was kind of like a Gen Con straight up thing. So maybe it was like what type of game or type of experience combined with time. Maybe that's how they figured out. There were some that were definitely way more.
Yeah.
But as far as tabletop, I believe that's kind of how they did it, was on like a time metric.
Yeah. So it does, like I said, it would, stand to have a little bit of research put into it. And I'm
Oh,
definitely
absolutely.
going to be putting some research into this as well, because I plan on, again, being in a connecting hotel, which means that I'm going to need some generic tickets, because there is going to be cases where I'm going to want to use those tickets for something, because I think that with a little bit better time management, we could have got a lot more done, especially if we, have to take out that transit kind of a thought of things.
That's an extra half-hour day we could be playing Dice Throne, baby.
Yeah, I could be doing anything, playing all kinds of games.
Yeah. Oh God, the amount of times where we were like, "Can we please get in on this game of Dragon Bane?" And they're like, "No."
Yeah, no,
We're like,
sorry.
"Oh no."
Yeah, there was a couple of times where we saw something really cool and we walked in and we're all like, "Anything open?" And they're all like, "Did you pre-register?" And we're like, "No." And they're like, "Yeah, then no, sorry, it's full up." Which, like I said, is not the fault of the con. It's not the fault of the people running the game.
Exactly.
The fault was all ours.
They're
for
catering to
pre-planning.
70,000 people.
Yeah, and that's the thing you got to remember, is that so many people are walking through these doors. They are catering to just massive crowds of people, and that's why this system has to be the way it is. They can't just have panels willy-nilly with just 10,000 people queuing up for a room that can only hold 200 people.
Yeah. And really, like, this is a thing. I mean, I believe we went to a show that probably could have only fit 80 people.
Oh yeah, no, one of the shows we went to was incredibly small. Yeah
Like, unmiked, you could hear the GM easily, no issue at all.
Yeah.
And he would like walk away from the mic, and I'm like, "Oh, he's not on the mic anymore. He sounds the same."
Yeah, he's not. He sounds exactly the same, and that's just because the acoustics in this room are great.
Yeah.
And it's such a small room.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's some of these are very, very limited, and some of them are much larger. So some of the event halls that we went to were quite large, and they could hold large amounts of people. But even still, 70,000 people over the course of a weekend, do the math.
Yeah.
They have to have these systems the way that they do. So yeah, research your events. Figure out if there's something that you're really specifically interested in, and make an effort to get in on it, because there's a lot of really cool stuff out there.
Now, side tangent, just because Richard mentioned catering, and that reminded me of the wonderful and delicious food trucks. Food trucks galore, my friends.
If you like food trucks, there's options.
There's a schedule online, and it shows you what trucks are coming at what hours of the day, because of course they're cycling in and out. There's so many of them, and there's some that are like, they're there the whole time. They're permanent setups, including a coffee stand that had probably my favorite coffee I've ever had in my life.
Oh,
I think
best coffee I've ever had.
I think
down.
we got, I don't know, like two coffees a day
every
day.
Yeah, every day we went to that coffee shop in the morning, and then sometimes in the evenings.
Oh, so good.
Just because that coffee was so good.
I mean, they knew us by the time we left, and I hope next year they're there again and they'll recognize us.
Oh yeah, no, I'm going back there for sure. And what he's referring to specifically is the block party. So that's what they call it. So right outside of the convention center is what they refer to as the block party, which goes on all the time. And there are some permanent food trucks. So there are certain vendors that are there pretty much the entire time. And then down the road, they cycle out other ones. So basically they have a schedule that you can look at. You can see when they're going to be there. So they have, breakfast food trucks that cycle out, for lunch food trucks that cycle out, for dinner food trucks. And then you have the basics, the ones that are always there, like the coffee shop that ruled. So those are always there. So if you're into food trucks and you're into eating at the convention center, there's a lot of really good options there. There's also a lot of really good options around there.
Oh yeah,
so yeah,
for sure.
We didn't eat at the block party every single day. We were trying to save some shekels here and there, so we ate at some cheaper places that are on the outsides and everything like that. So there are obviously other places you can go in the city to save a little bit of cash, but man, some of those food trucks, there was some really, really good food. And then there's also convention-specific food.
Yep, of course.
Yeah, like the pizza, what was Queen's Gambit, which was a pizza with, it had Dijon mustard on it, pulled pork, barbecue sauce, ham, bacon, and pickles. And I think it was probably the best pizza I've ever had in my life. It was a life-changing experience, just like the coffee.
I'm just thinking about those chips that came with that Philly cheesesteak we got.
Yeah, we got some Philly cheesesteaks from Prime 47, the steakhouse that was doing all kinds of really good food out there.
And then the last day, we just happened to find the guy behind us in line for a drink. We just had this like tray in his hand full of delicious gooey macaroni and cheese with pulled pork, and we were like, "Where did you get that?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Right over there. It's like $8." And we're like, "What?"
Massive amounts of food.
It
for
was
like
too
$8.
much food.
Yeah, too much food. Truly too much food. And excellent food.
It was so good.
So yeah, Block Party is definitely there, and there's a lot of really good food. So you don't have to go far if you're willing to check out the food truck situation.
Another mini tiny side tangent. There are water refill stations all over Gen Con, so if you bring your own refillable water bottle, stay hydrated.
Yeah, that was super nice
Yes.
because I went through a lot of water because there was a lot of walking, a lot of talking. Having water nearby, great. Having refill stations, even better.
Yep. Now, well, all right, boring stuff out of the way, I guess. You know, if refilling water bottles is boring to you, maybe it's the most interesting part of the podcast for some of you. And for those of you, looking at you. I don't know what else to really jump into right now.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of covered a lot of what our first experience with Gen Con was.
I'll say I think the biggest thing is there's so much more meat we need to jump into and I guess chew up and yeah, you know, but those are going to be spit out across the next few episodes.
Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff. Like, so we went in there, we gave you our top list of the games we were there looking for, right? And we saw some of those. We got some of those we didn't got, you know? So we want to talk about a lot of those. We want to do episodes devoted to some of those. And then there's a bunch of stuff that just surprised us. Like stuff that we saw on the show floor that we didn't expect. Both of us bought games just based on the demo that we had walking by a booth. Like you didn't even know I bought one game until we got like back to the hotel room, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I bought a game. Check this out."
Guess how many ladders I can stack up?
Yeah,
I'm like, what?
And it was like, "When did this happen?" And it was like, "Oh, you were doing an interview over there, and I was waiting for another interview to start, and I walked by a booth, and the guy was like, "Hey, you want to try this game?" And I was like, "Yeah, I want to try this game." And then 15 minutes later, I got a game underneath my arm, and I was like, "That game was cool enough to buy."
I wish I could pronounce the name of that Stacky Rock game I got.
Oh yeah,
over there at the Sky Team booth.
Like,
I'm just like
Quibibble or something.
Yeah, I'm like, this
Quijibble.
looks interesting. I guess I'll also get it, and it's my favorite purchase.
Yeah, and it's amazing.
It's so
super
good.
Fun. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that we saw that we want to talk about, but it's all stuff that's going to be in another episode that we're going to devote to cool things that we saw at Gen Con, and then some of them are going to be full-fledged episodes like the D&D game, which that's a one we'll probably talk about in the the overview of games that we saw, but also is going to get its own episode just because it is super cool. We're going to figure out how we're going to do that.
Yeah. I guess the only other like little tidbits of advice I can think of are, we mentioned how if there's a game you want to get ahead of time, plan to get it. Just make a short list on your Thursday, the first day you're there, because these things do sell out, and try to look at the map, see where they're at and where they're located, and try to pick them up as quick as you can, maybe that first day. And then just have them and be like, I win. And then, explore leisurely. Outside of that, Sundays, some developers and, retailers and stuff, you'll see some games and things marked down because, they've got extra inventory and they're trying to sell it all before, the end of the weekend. That is not something you can count on. So definitely don't go assuming that the game you want is going to be available still and marked down on top of that.
Yes.
However, if you are planning on, you have a ticket through Sunday, you bought the 4-day pass, and you're like, I'll just leave this, Sunday morning. I don't need to go back. Go back Sunday morning, at least for a couple hours if you can, just to see what is marked down and what's still available and what booths you swear weren't there the whole weekend that have suddenly appeared. But yeah, when we went through Sunday morning, there were a lot of games that were marked down.
Yeah.
Which, hey, you might be able to snag something that was maybe on your maybe list for, 30% off or something. Either way, pretty freaking cool. If you see a bunch of hats on a table that are the brand of the booth, maybe those hats are free. Don't assume everything is paid, and give up owning a nice hat because you didn't ask if it was free. And guess what? Sometimes it is.
Yeah.
Other than that, man, I don't recommend lining up for a game like Lorcana at 7 p.m. the day before the gate opens up at 10 a.m. the next morning.
Yeah.
That is rough. Now, I say that. All of those people that did do that probably have $1,000 or so from their Gen Con exclusive Mickey Mouse card. So congratulations.
Yep, congratulations to those folks.
You probably paid for your trip based on these cards you've scalped and sold. And
you won.
You win.
Yeah.
I was sleeping while you were winning.
Yeah.
So I guess take that as you will.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. You got anything else?
No, I think that's it. Oh, one more thing before we
Ooh.
go. One more thing. And I do suggest you do this. Tyler, I can't take credit for this because you did it first and then turned me into a fiend, which is if there is a developer there that you like and it's somebody that you're interested in, watch their socials while you're at the show.
Oh.
Just occasionally, if you have a couple
Yeah.
minutes, you're waiting in a line somewhere, pull up Twitter, pull up Facebook, pull up Instagram, and just check the socials of the people that you're following. Because one thing that developers do like to do, it turns out, is give away free product to their fans.
I totally forgot about this.
And all you got to do is be watching your socials, which we'll talk about that when we go into the game things, because we did not walk away empty-handed from some of these developers giving stuff away just for paying attention to their social media presence.
No, we definitely we left this event with full hands and full hearts and much sadness.
Yes.
Because we're not there any longer.
But we will be back next year.
Absolutely.
I don't see a world in which we do not attend this again many, many times in the future, just a little bit differently.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we've learned a lot, and hopefully those listening, you've learned some at least. Feel free to reach out to us on Threads or Instagram or any of our socials if you have any questions or even criticism, whatever you got. We'll get back with you as soon as we can, and even if it's a year from now and you're listening to this in 2024 and GenCon's right around the corner and you have some questions, hit us up.
Yeah.
Maybe you're just looking for someone to share a room with.
Yeah, exactly. maybe you want a connecting hotel room and you just want to slide in there and we can make something happen.
Yeah, we'll see. But for now, I've been Tyler.
And I've been Richard.
And we've been True Strike. Hey, adventurers. Thanks again for joining us today. Please be sure to give us a follow on your favorite podcasting platforms and YouTube. If there's any questions you'd like to write into the show, you can hit us up on Threads or Instagram. New episodes release every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for listening to True Strike.